So what do I want to say this morning? I think there are probably 5 points I want to make this morning. And the first, I mean, we can't ignore. I know all of us want to move on from COVID. I know, but it looks like there's another wave coming. The numbers are looking disastrous, and everybody is having, they're all kind of having trouble thinking about what's coming next. But so COVID isn't over, but if we could say that we're in a kind of interregnum period with wondering what is coming next, and we can't really talk about anything without including COVID. And of course COVID was a disaster for so many people. It was a disaster for families, it was a disaster for colleagues working in hospitals here. For all I know, you've lost loved ones, and it's something that will stay with us really for the rest of our lives, the experience of working through it. But out of COVID there came, I think, 5 things that I really think are worth hanging on to. And the first is change. So much changed during COVID. And I've spent years, most of my professional life, speaking to groups, talking about the management of change. And the one message I've always tried to leave with people about the management of change is people love change if they feel they're in charge. And if you want to change something, you include people. People love change if they feel they're in charge. And it seems such a simple message, but it's a very difficult message to get across. It's even more difficult to do. Well, of course, what happened during COVID? A hell of a lot changed because people were in charge. They said, we can't work like this. This system doesn't work. This is too clunky. We've got to share data. All of the things that we found difficulty in doing before COVID, suddenly, boom, it happened because people were in charge. And people were given their head, people were given responsibilities, and people got on and they improved things. So the first lesson from COVID, because we absolutely must get the best out of this. I mean, the other little oxymoron or axiom that I have about change is respect the past and take the best of it in the future. And we have to respect the past, what came out of COVID, but take the best of it in the future. And one of the best things that came out of COVID, I think, is our attitude to change. People love change if they think they're in charge. They were in charge. I don't know how much changed here, but looking at the NHS as a whole, a huge amount changed. The next thing I want to talk about is optimism. Out of COVID, there came a huge sense of optimism, the optimism that people could do things. And we saw up in, I think, Terry, it was up in Lincoln, wasn't it, where we're going this week, where it was Sharon up in Lincoln. She was the first person, I think, to look at people in ITU with masks and air, and they couldn't talk to their relatives. And she was the first person, I think, who took her iPad into work. She just broke all the rules, data protection, blah, privacy, blah. These people need to talk to their relatives. And she took her iPad into work and said, okay, what's your daughter's number? And she used her own iPad so people could talk from inside ITU to people outside. And of course, it ended up with the academy. I mean, we didn't invent it. We were just very pleased to show people what good looks like, and they did it. And before we knew it, the whole thing spread like wildfire. And I think we even had, PC World or somebody came in and gave one of the hospitals a whole load of...
Yeah, there was a huge amount of support once it was publicised. So lots of local charities gifted iPads. It became a very formal process. People could email in, my mom's on so-and-so ward, this is my telephone, my mobile number. When the doctors come round, could you call me? So it spread hugely.
Yes.
And from one person going, this isn't good enough, I'm bringing my own iPad in, and this is what we're doing.
Which kind of underpins and underlines the thing that we try, well, the whole raison d'etre, the whole purpose of the Academy of Fabulous Stuff is to share ideas. They don't have to be big ideas, they don't have to be clinically proven or medically whatever. These just happen to be things that people do and work. And we saw also during COVID the wobble rooms emerge. Where was that? Were they in Birmingham? I forget where they were now. But
I forget the trust that started it. It was a lecturer who started.
And you had them here, I think.
You
did them here, so you don't need me to explain to you what a wobble room is. But the important thing was the optimism that you could actually do stuff. And people were optimistic about doing stuff. They weren't saying, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had somewhere where the staff could sit down, have a cup of tea and a shout and a scream and a cry if they want to. Actually, people just did it. So it's the kind of optimism that came out of it. The third thing, I think, is the values that the NHS has. I moved from Surrey into London right at the beginning of COVID. And I shall never forget, the one Thursday evening, I suddenly heard this huge cacophony outside in this apartment block. And I thought, what the hell is that? Opened the balcony door, went out onto the balcony, and everybody else is out on their balcony, banging the drums and shouting and applauding, and they were applauding, of course, for the NHS. And it was the extent to which people valued the NHS. And I think at a time now when the NHS is under pressure, there's going to be a big problem with waiting lists. It looks like the NHS isn't making the progress with waiting lists that perhaps it might have done. There's news out this morning that isn't really very optimistic about the numbers. We're supposed to be 110% of the numbers in 2019, but we're only at 18%. I mean, this is going to get really very difficult to get back into the operational performance that the NHS was used to. But it's the value that the public have placed on the NHS. I mean, the NHS was always kind of love, and it had a great affection, because I don't know anybody who hasn't had a family that benefited or said being grateful to the NHS. But I think the whole value of the NHS has improved enormously, and it is up to us now to value that value. It's how we play back to that value and the relationships that we create with the people that we serve. The next, the fourth thing is information. Information technology. There's been a kind of reluctance in the NHS to sort out IT, and we're still not doing it. And I've written a piece this morning in my e-letter about the new digital strategy, which frankly is a congested mess. What we need is some clarity about doing three things. If you want to change things, make it simple. Find three things, explain what they are, and get on and do them. But this is giving us 149 things to do in 600 days. Really, you're having a laugh. But what we have learned is the value of IT and information technology, because out of the fact that Sharon up in Lincoln first brought her iPad to work, now people are having video consultations with GPs. People are having video consultations with outpatients. And all of us, I think, are looking to see how we can use those kind of technologies, not only to bring down the waiting that there is for our essential services, but also make it a lot easier for people. Because really, who really wants to take half a day off work, spend 10 quid in a car park, sit in a waiting room, and have 3 minutes with a doctor after you've had an operation? He says, how are you feeling after your operation, Mr. Lilly? You say, fine, thanks so much, cheery, off you go. I mean, so much of that now can be done with the use of straightforward, simple technology that doesn't cost a fortune and makes lives a lot easier. Now, people always say to me, well, what about the people who don't have the technology? What about people who don't have an iPad? What about people who can't manage? What about my granny? Well, here's the important thing to remember. The important thing here is this. For every one person that you can look after safely and satisfactorily using IT, information technology, it creates the headroom to look after people that can't better. You create the time and space to look after those people better, so they're not all just churned through the system. So I think that's made a huge difference. From GPs, I mean, GPs have had a huge amount of flack about personal face-to-face appointments, and they don't deserve it. It's just a stupid newspaper and a very stupid Secretary of State for Health, in my view. But they've been able to do this now with their GP. And I mean, you know, I've got an app on my phone, you know, that I talk to my GP on my phone. You know, why wouldn't I want to talk to him on my phone unless, you know, there was something that I really need to go and see him. So this kind of technology is really important, and we must look after that. And the final thing, my fifth thing, is data. Now, I don't know if you remember, do you remember when David Beckham broke his metatarsal at the World Cup football? Do you remember that? Don't look at me like that. David Beckham is all in your era. So there's a thing called World Cup football. I'm sure you know. But David Beckham was a bit of a glamorous star. He broke his metatarsal. He was a key player and couldn't play. Well, the first thing is no one knew what a metatarsal was. That's the important thing. And no one knew how long it would take to fix it. But suddenly, because of Google, we all knew overnight. We all became orthopedic surgeons. It's been just the same in COVID, because we've all become experts. We've all become. What's the professional skill that begins with an E? The people who analyse the data. Ask the librarian, Jason.
I don't feel on the spot at all.
Okay. Jason's going to look it up later on. But I mean, it is funny. The word is epidemiology, Jason. I just tested it. Right. You see, we didn't know what a metatarsal was, and we couldn't spell it, but we all found out. Now, we're all epidemiologists. Nobody can spell epidemiologist. Certainly I can't spell it. Nobody knew what an epidemiologist was. But now, because of data, and on the telly every night there are those wiggly lines that just keep going up and up and up, we're all epidemiologists, and we've all come to realise the value of data. And data is the new oil. Data answers the question, what made us sick? What fixed us up? Did it work? What does it cost? And what do we want to do it again? There are 5 things that data can answer, the 5 key questions about the future of healthcare that we can't answer because we haven't paid attention to the data. And that's really important. So what I'm saying now is we need to move on from this kind of, we're kind of stuck with data. We're frightened that, you know, somebody's going to sell our data to the Daily Mirror, and the fact that I got a spot on my bum is going to be on the front page of the Daily Mirror. I don't think anybody's really interested. I think my data on its own is of no value. My data and Jason's data compared, 2 geezers, might be of some value, who knows. But all our data, 60 million people's data, anonymised, compared, contrasted, and used to plot the future of healthcare. Who got sick? What made them sick? What fixed them up? Did it work? Do we want to do it again? The 5 key questions in the future of healthcare we can't answer because of data. So if we look at my 5 things, I missed out. Didn't I? It was information technology. Yeah. So the important thing is this. We've got change, we've got optimism, we've got value, we've got information, and information technology, and we've got data. COVID. It's spelled COVID. And my message to you this morning is, don't waste the opportunity of COVID. It's really important that we take, what did I say right at the beginning? We respect the past and take the best of it into the future, because all of us who've been through COVID are COVID custodians. And we owe it to the people who've suffered with COVID, whose families have been upset, destroyed, they've had huge grief. Some of you, it may include you. We owe it to the people who've gone through COVID to respect the past and take the best things that we can take out of COVID into the future. So COVID for me spells the future. And one final thing, I think, is, you know, when you go home and you flop on the sofa and you use the best invention known to man, the screw-top bottle of wine. No corkscrew required. And you pour yourself a large one and you flop on the sofa and you say, you know what, I've had a good day today, I've worked hard, I've done a good job. My question to you is, how do you know? How do you know you have? You might be knackered, you might think you have, but how do you know that there isn't someone down the road at another hospital doing exactly what you're doing, better than you? That's a tough question, isn't it? But the other way round, how do we know that when you flop on the sofa and you say, I've had a really good day today, that you aren't the best at what you do, not only better than the hospital down the road, but all the hospitals in the region and all the hospitals in the country, and 157 hospitals like you, how do we know you aren't the best? You see, we have to share what we do. We have to share so we can find out. And that's the importance of the Academy of Fabulous Stuff. That's the importance of us reconnecting, recharging, rebuilding and renewing what we're doing after COVID. And that's why COVID is so important, and that's why we're all COVID custodians. Thank you for listening to me.
If there's no questions, could I just say, Roy, your talk was really timely because it's so exciting. This afternoon, Matthew is facilitating the launch of Fab Digital QI using data to ensure that we have the data that we need to audit and track improvements. Exactly, and that launches today. If you go onto the website, there's a page in the menu bar called Fab Collections. If you click on Fab Collections, you'll see this brand new campaign launching today. There's also all the Fab changes 22 to 23 resources are in this new area we've got called Fab Collections. So really looking forward to this afternoon and this real focus on QI, data and digital.